Same as Ever, A Guide to What Never Changes by Morgan Housel. Picture this: 3 teenagers standing at the top of a snow-covered mountain in Lake Tahoe. It's February 21st, 2001, and a massive blizzard has just dumped 3 feet of heavy, wet snow across the slopes. The kind of snow that screams avalanche danger. But teenagers don't hear warnings very well, do they? So these 3 friends, let's call them Morgan, Brendan, and Brian, duck under the warning ropes to ski the forbidden backcountry. You know, the untouched powder that looks so tempting, the stuff that makes you forget why those ropes were there in the first place. Within seconds, the mountain decides to remind them. The ground disappears beneath their skis, and suddenly they're floating in a cloud of white, tumbling down in a small avalanche. When it stops, they're all okay. Laughing, even. Brendan's pumped, saying it was awesome. They hitchhike back to the lodge, adrenaline still rushing. Brendan and Brian want to do it again, but Morgan, for reasons he still can't explain, says no. Not a gut feeling exactly. Not a careful calculation of the odds. Just no. Instead, he offers to drive around to the bottom of the mountain to pick them up. They agree and head back up. Morgan drives to the meeting spot and waits. 30 minutes pass. Then an hour. Deep down, he knows something's wrong. That night, search dogs find Brendan and Brian buried under 6 feet of snow, just 10 feet apart. Born 1 day apart, they died the same way. That young man who survived because of one random, inexplicable decision? That's Morgan Housel, the author we're diving into today. That moment taught him something profound. Life balances on the thinnest edge. The biggest moments that shape our existence often come down to pure, unpredictable chance. So here's the question. If the world is this random, if we can't see what's coming, what the hell can we actually count on? That's exactly what we're unpacking today. Housel wrote The Psychology of Money, which became a phenomenon and changed how millions think about wealth. With Same as Ever, he's asking an even deeper question. If we can never predict what will change, what if we built our lives around the things that never do? By the time we're done, you'll understand the mental framework that brilliant minds like Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos use to see further than everyone else. It's not about predicting trends or catching the next big wave. It's about understanding the timeless patterns of human behavior. Because while history doesn't repeat, humans absolutely do, and once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. Imagine sitting in a car with Warren Buffett. It's 2009, the economy's in ruins, businesses are closing everywhere, and you turn to him and ask, "Warren, how does the world ever recover from this?" Instead of launching into economic theory, he just asks you a simple question. What was the best-selling candy bar in 1962? You have no idea. Snickers, he says. And what's the best-selling candy bar today? You shrug. Snickers? That's it. End of conversation. What does a candy bar have to do with economic recovery? Everything, actually. While technology, politics, and markets change in completely unpredictable ways, the core of what drives human behavior, our cravings, our fears, what we want, stays exactly the same. We still love sugar, salt, and fat. That never changes. This is the heart of Same as Ever. Jeff Bezos once pointed out that people always ask him what's going to change in the next 10 years. But the better question, he says, is, what's not going to change? For Amazon, the answer's obvious. Customers will always want lower prices and faster shipping. So Bezos can invest billions in those things, confident they'll still matter a decade from now. That's the secret. Don't bet on what might change. Build your foundation on what's timeless. So what are these timeless truths? The first one Morgan learned on that tragic day on the mountain: the world is fragile, and the risks that matter are the ones you don't see coming. We're pretty good at predicting the future, except for the surprises, and the surprises are everything. Think about the biggest events in recent history: a global pandemic, financial meltdowns, political upheavals. Was any of it headline news the year before? Not even close. The biggest risks are always the things nobody's talking about, because if nobody's talking about them, nobody's prepared. Take Harry Houdini. The master escape artist could be chained up, thrown in a river, and escape every time because he planned for it. He was ready for every imaginable danger. But one day, a student walked up backstage and punched him in the stomach without warning. Houdini wasn't ready. He wasn't bracing like he did for his stunts. That unexpected punch ruptured his appendix, and within days, Harry Houdini was dead. He could survive every big risk he anticipated, but the small one he never saw coming killed him. This truth never changes. The biggest story of the next decade is something nobody's discussing today. So how do you prepare for something invisible? You don't try to predict it. You build margin into your life. In your finances, that means saving more than feels necessary. It should feel slightly excessive. In your career, it means constantly learning, knowing your industry could flip overnight. You're not preparing for a specific disaster. You're preparing for the reality that disasters will happen. You invest in preparedness, not prediction. The second timeless truth: the first rule of happiness is managing expectations. Your happiness doesn't depend on your salary, your house, or your possessions. It depends on one thing: the gap between what you expect and what you get. Housel asks us to consider the 1950s. We have this nostalgic view of it as some golden age, when one income could support a family, buy a house, and live comfortably. But here are the actual facts. The median family income in 1955, adjusted for inflation, was about half what it is today. Houses were a third smaller, even though families were bigger. Workplace debts were 3 times higher. Food ate up twice as much of the budget. So why the nostalgia? Because in the 50s, the gap between rich and poor was smaller. Most people lived similarly to their neighbors. Your expectations stayed reasonable because you weren't bombarded with images of people living dramatically better lives. You weren't comparing your reality to someone's Instagram highlight reel. As a philosopher wrote 275 years ago, if you only wish to be happy, this could be easily accomplished. But we wish to be happier than other people, and this is always difficult, for we believe others to be happier than they are. The world isn't driven by greed. It's driven by envy. This dangerous truth never changes. Today's economy is brilliant at creating 3 things: wealth, ways to show off wealth, and intense envy of other people's wealth. Charlie Munger, Buffett's longtime partner, said happiness is simple. Keep your expectations low. Unrealistic expectations will make you miserable your entire life. It's a mental game you have to master. The goal isn't just improving your circumstances. It's managing your expectations as things improve. Otherwise, you're a hamster on a wheel, running faster but never getting anywhere. This brings us to another uncomfortable truth: wild minds. People who think about the world in unique ways you admire also think about the world in unique ways you won't like. We love celebrating genius. We see someone like Elon Musk taking on the auto industry and space exploration simultaneously, and we're amazed. But then we're confused when that same mindset leads to outrageous promises or ignoring social norms. Here's the thing: you can't separate them. They're 2 sides of the same coin. The personality that lets someone envision colonizing Mars is the same one that makes them indifferent to what's normal, or appropriate. Minds capable of incredible breakthroughs are often, by nature, abnormal. Consider John Boyd, perhaps history's greatest fighter pilot. He revolutionized aerial combat. His tactics manual is still used today. But he was also impossible, rude, disobedient, screaming at superiors. The Air Force needed his genius, but couldn't stand the man. His brilliance and his difficulty came from the same source, a mind that saw the world completely differently. Same with Steve Jobs, visionary and notoriously difficult. Isaac Newton, one of history's greatest minds, spent years devoted to alchemy and sorcery. We want the genius without the chaos, the innovation without the disruption. But that's not how it works. When choosing role models, you have to accept the whole package. As investor Naval Ravikant says, you can't cherry-pick aspects of someone's life you envy. You'd have to trade places completely, 24/7, with all their anxieties, flaws, and struggles. If you're not willing to do that, there's no point being jealous. This leads to a crucial point about how we process information. We think we want accuracy, but what we really crave is certainty. Imagine a CIA analyst telling the president there's a 60% chance a terrorist is in a compound. The president's first question will be, so yes or no? We live in a world of probabilities, but think in black and white. Were you right or wrong? This is why forecasters and pundits always have an audience, even when they're consistently wrong. Someone confident who promises to tell you what's coming offers powerful relief from the anxiety of uncertainty. Someone saying there's a 60% chance of recession might be more accurate, but they're not easing your anxiety. Someone declaring there will be a recession gives you something to hold on to, even if it's wrong. This craving for certainty makes us terrible with numbers, especially very large and very small ones. We hear about a once-in-a-100-year flood and think we're safe for 99 years. But it just means there's a 1% chance any given year. And when there are hundreds of different once-in-a-100-year events, pandemics, earthquakes, financial crises, political meltdowns, the odds that one happens in any given year are actually pretty high. The world breaks about once a decade. Always has, always will. It's not bad luck, it's math. There are countless things that can go wrong, so something is almost always going wrong somewhere. In our connected world, you'll hear about it instantly. This is why the world feels like it's falling apart, even when long-term measures show improvement. Our awareness used to be local. Now it's global. When your news feed covers the entire planet, the odds of seeing tragedy at any moment are 100%. So if we're bad with numbers and crave certainty, how do we make decisions? How are we persuaded? Another timeless truth: the best story wins. Not the best idea, not the most rational argument, the best story. A brilliant idea explained poorly goes nowhere. A mediocre idea told compellingly can start a revolution. Morgan Freeman could read a grocery list and move you to tears. We're not creatures of logic. We're creatures of emotion. A good story beats a cold statistic every time. Think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, one of history's most famous speeches. But most people don't know the best part wasn't scripted. He was halfway through his prepared remarks when gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, standing nearby, shouted, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." King pushed his notes aside, looked at 250,000 people, and improvised the entire "I have a dream" section. He abandoned his facts and figures and told a story instead. A story people could see and feel. A story that connected with millions of hearts and changed history. This is powerful, Every company's stock market valuation is just a number from today, multiplied by a story about tomorrow. If you want to persuade, inspire, or lead someone, you need more than facts. You need to tell them a story they want to believe. This reliance on stories over statistics explains why the world often behaves irrationally. Why do stock bubbles happen? Why do smart people get swept up in manias? Because the world is driven by forces you can't measure. You can't put human emotion, fear, greed, or tribal loyalty in a spreadsheet. As investor Jim Grant said, thinking the stock market is purely driven by earnings and interest rates forgets that people have quote 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 mina exprida wis quote 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 wis quote 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 or defended Joseph Stalin and defended Joseph Stalin. Our decisions are guided by what Keynes called animal spirits, the stories we tell ourselves, the feelings in our gut, hopes and fears impossible to quantify, but more powerful than any number. This leads to one of history's most reliable cycles, what economist Hyman Minsky called the financial instability hypothesis. When things are stable, people become optimistic. When people are optimistic, they take more risk and more debt. When they take more risk and debt, the system becomes unstable. In other words, stability creates instability. Calm plants the seeds of chaos. Think about it. If the stock market was guaranteed never to fall, what would you do? You'd borrow everything possible and pour it into stocks. Everyone would. And by doing so, you'd drive prices so insanely high that they'd become incredibly fragile, ready to collapse at the slightest bad news. The belief in stability creates the conditions for instability. This cycle is everywhere. Years of economic calm in the early 2000s led to the reckless behavior causing the 2008 financial crisis. Decades of progress against infectious diseases made us complacent, leaving us unprepared for a pandemic. Paranoia leads to success, but success makes us abandon paranoia, which leads to failure. It's a timeless cycle of human behavior. We keep falling for it because we have an unstoppable urge to push good things too far too fast. We discover something that works and immediately ask, can we make it bigger? Can we do it faster? But most things have a natural size and speed. They backfire when pushed beyond limits. A tree forced to grow too fast develops weak wood and rots inside. Fish grown artificially large die younger than those that grow naturally. Starbucks in the early 2000s opened a new store every 4 hours. They grew so fast that founder Howard Schultz admitted they lost their way. The Starbucks experience was watered down. Their stock crashed. They learned that growth is a tactic, not a strategy. When undisciplined growth becomes the strategy, you're headed for trouble. Same with investing. The stock market pays a fortune long term, but demands punitive damages when you want to be paid sooner. Investment history is littered with ruins of people who tried compressing a decades-long process into months. So where does real, lasting progress come from? Here's a paradox. It rarely comes when things are going well. The most important innovations and biggest changes happen during and after terrible events. Stress focuses attention in ways good times can't. The New Deal, which reshaped the American economy, was born from Great Depression desperation. World War II's incredible technological leaps, radar, jets, atomic energy, were fueled by the existential threat of, figure this out now or we all die. The COVID-19 pandemic, for all its tragedy, spurred the fastest vaccine development in history. It's uncomfortable, but hardship is the most potent fuel for problem solving. It's when magic happens. We shouldn't celebrate hardship, but we should recognize it plants seeds for future opportunities. This creates life's rhythm, a pattern of overnight tragedies and long-term miracles. Bad news happens instantly. A market crash, terrorist attack, pandemic. It upends your world in a day. It grabs your attention and won't let go. But good news takes time. It comes from compounding, so slow you barely notice. Heart disease death rates have fallen 70% since the 1950s, saving millions of lives. But because it happened at 1.5% per year, nobody threw a parade. It's a miracle in slow motion, so we ignored it. The long run is usually pretty good, but the short run is a constant parade of setbacks and shocks. Understanding this helps balance optimism and pessimism. You save like a pessimist, knowing bad things will happen unexpectedly. But you invest like an optimist, trusting that long-term human ingenuity will solve problems and create growth. It's the Stockdale paradox, named after Admiral Jim Stockdale, a Vietnam POW. He said those who didn't make it were the optimists, the ones saying, "We'll be home by Christmas." When Christmas came and went, they died of broken hearts. You need unwavering faith you'll prevail in the end, while simultaneously confronting brutal current facts. This delicate balance requires understanding one final crucial truth: everything worth pursuing is supposed to be hard. We're addicted to hacks and shortcuts. But the trick to life isn't finding a way around pain. As Lawrence of Arabia said when putting out a match with his fingers, the trick is not minding that it hurts. Jerry Seinfeld was once told he could avoid writer burnout and keep his show going if he'd just hired consultants for efficiency. He asked, "Is the consulting firm funny?" When they said no, he replied, "Then I don't need them. If you're efficient, you're doing it wrong. The right way is the hard way." We admire great achievements precisely because they're hard. The price of success isn't paid in cash. It's paid in stress, uncertainty, and long hours. There are no coupons, and sales are rare. And even after achieving success, the work continues. One of the hardest truths: competitive advantages have expiration dates. You have to keep running just to stay in place. Evolution teaches us this. The tendency for species to grow larger is counterbalanced by the tendency for extinction to kill off bigger species. Size is an advantage until it's not. Big animals are fragile. They need more food, can't hide, reproduce slowly. The most dominant creatures are often huge, but the most enduring are small. T-Rex is gone. Cockroaches remain. Companies are the same. Sears was once the Amazon of its day, the largest, most dominant retailer in the world. Its success made it complacent, slow, unable to adapt. Its very size became its downfall. The world is relentless and unforgiving. Past success doesn't guarantee future survival. The only way to endure is accepting the race never ends. This brings us to the most personal and perhaps most important timeless truth: wounds heal, but scars last. Your life experiences, especially painful, scary, traumatic ones, leave permanent marks. They shape how you think about risk, what you value, what you want from life. The generation that lived through the Great Depression never viewed money the same way. Even during the booming 50s, they craved security. They'd learned from bitter experience. This is the source of most disagreements. We're not really disagreeing about facts. We're people with different life experiences talking past each other. Someone who grew up poor will view risk and money fundamentally differently than someone raised wealthy. Someone who lived through war sees the world differently than someone who's only known peace. Instead of asking, "Why don't you agree with me?" ask something more powerful: What have you experienced that I haven't, that makes you believe what you do? And would I think like you if I'd experienced what you have? That question requires humility. It requires admitting your worldview isn't the only one, and it's shaped by your limited experiences. But it's the key to empathy, understanding, and navigating a world full of people who aren't like you. Because everyone carries scars you can't see. And that is the same as it's ever been, and the same as it will ever be. As we wrap up our journey through Same as Ever, let's pause and let the central idea really sink in. We spend so much energy obsessed with the future, trying to predict it, control it, feeling anxious about its uncertainty. Morgan Housel offers a radical, almost liberating alternative. Stop trying so hard. Instead of gazing into a crystal ball, look into the mirror of history. The most powerful tool for navigating the future isn't a forecast. It's deep understanding of timeless behaviors. Greed and fear will always drive markets. Envy will always motivate more powerfully than ambition. Stories will always persuade better than statistics. And progress will always be messy. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, fueled by hardship. This isn't just interesting philosophy about history or investing. It's a practical guide to living a wiser, more resilient life. So how can we apply this today? First, next time you face a big decision, instead of only thinking about what might happen next, ask yourself, and then what? Don't stop at first-order consequences. Trace the chain of events. A change in one area creates ripple effects of second, third, and fourth-order consequences, often far more important than the initial event. Thinking this way trains your mind to see the world as a complex, interconnected system, which is much closer to reality. Second, next time you're in a disagreement about politics, money, life choices, pause and ask yourself that powerful question. What has this person experienced that I haven't? This simple act transforms conflict into connection. It shifts you from judgment to curiosity, and it's the foundation of true empathy and understanding. Finally, start filtering information through a new lens. For everything you read or watch, ask, is this permanent knowledge or expiring knowledge? Will this headline matter in a year, in a decade, or is it just noise? By consciously focusing on timeless ideas, psychology of behavior, lessons of history, fundamental principles of your field, you'll build a mental framework that compounds over time, making you wiser, not just more informed. We've covered the core lessons from Same as Ever today, but here's the truth. A summary is like a travel brochure. It shows beautiful pictures but can never replace actually being there. The real magic of this book happens in quiet moments, when a particular story or phrase connects with your own experiences in unexpected ways. This summary gives you a map, but if anything we've discussed has resonated, I encourage you to take the journey yourself. Grab a copy, because reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see the world and your place in it. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to keep exploring wisdom from the world's most impactful books, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. It lets me know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey together. Let's keep learning and keep growing.